Hello and welcome to Drama Recaps. Today, we're exploring the intriguing 2018 Western drama, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Get ready for some spoilers. We're introduced to Buster Scruggs, the singing cowboy, during a sunny Wild West afternoon. Although jovial in demeanor, Buster is renowned as the most lethal gunman around, with a substantial bounty on his head. During his solitary journey, he halts at a tavern, but the bartender refuses to serve him whiskey, which is reserved for outlaws. Despite insisting that his pleasant appearance and chirpy nature mask his outlaw status, Buster is met with disbelief and even hostility. His challenge is met swiftly with the draw of his gun, and he leaves a room of defeated foes behind him. Further travels lead Buster to the unfamiliar town of Frenchman's Gulch. Abiding by the local saloon's rules, he checks his firearms at the entrance before joining a poker game. He finds himself dealt the infamous dead man's hand, and refusing to play it incurs the wrath of his fellow players. In the face of a threat from the intimidating Joe, Buster swiftly disarms him with a quick kick, and an unfortunate ricochet results in Joe's demise. The mood in the saloon is diffused with a spontaneous song from Buster, but his joy is cut short when Joe's brother challenges him to a duel. Buster's superior shooting skills see him prevail again, impressively downing his opponent with a reflected shot. However, Buster's reign is abruptly ended with the arrival of another singing cowboy, the Kid, who challenges Buster to a duel. The showdown is over in a blink, and Buster finds himself outgunned, his soul leaving his body as he accepts his fate. Elsewhere in New Mexico, a lone cowboy attempts to rob a secluded bank. The teller's seemingly cooperative act is a ruse for a surprise attack. Despite the cowboy's quick reflexes and successful theft, he finds himself outgunned and seeks refuge behind a well. His counterattack proves futile against the teller's makeshift armor, and he is knocked out. Awakening hours later, he finds himself bound and sentenced to death by a vigilante group. The somber moment is interrupted by a surprise attack from Comanche warriors, who kill the group but leave the cowboy alive, strapped to his horse. After a grueling few hours, he is discovered by a cattle driver who liberates him. However, the cowboy's newfound hope is short-lived, as he is implicated in the driver's illicit activities and apprehended by another group. Subsequently, he is sentenced by a town judge and finds himself staring at the gallows. As he faces his impending execution, the cowboy finds a young woman in the crowd, choosing to make her the final sight he sees, a sight of beauty amidst his imminent demise. In another part of town, a seasoned showman journeys with his ward Harrison, a limbless young man who is blessed with an enchanting voice. They use a wagon as their mobile stage, where Harrison recites literary classics while the showman collects donations. Beyond his stage duties, Harrison is reliant on the showman for his basic needs. However, the responsibility strains the showman, whose patience with Harrison wears thin with each passing day. When they frequent saloons, the showman often indulges while leaving Harrison aside. Their shows lose appeal as they journey further into the remote mountain towns, with scarce income. One evening, they encounter competition in the form of a numerically inclined chicken. Seeing the chicken's success, the showman acquires it, raising suspicion in Harrison. The following day, the showman halts by a river, dropping a stone to gauge its depth. Moments later, he resumes his journey, leaving Harrison behind in the river, the wagon now occupied by just him and the chicken. Elsewhere, a weathered prospector arrives by a mountain stream, hoping to strike gold. His initial attempts yield only minuscule gold particles, but he persists, following the gold trail. By camping alongside the river, the prospector lives off fishing and foraging for bird eggs. His diligence finally pays off when he discovers a large gold vein. His victory is short-lived, as a young man who'd been following him attempts to murder him. However, the prospector outsmarts him, playing dead before overpowering him and reclaiming his fortune. Meanwhile, siblings Alice and Gilbert join a wagon train journeying along the Oregon Trail. Gilbert, despite his lack of business acumen, assures Alice of an arranged marriage upon their arrival in Oregon. Their co-travelers are frequently perturbed by the incessant barking of their dog, President Pierce. Tragedy strikes early in their journey when Gilbert suddenly succumbs to what appears to be cholera. Leading the wagon train, Billy and Arthur offer Alice the choice to continue with the journey or return home after Gilbert's death. Given her lack of prospects back home, Alice chooses to carry on to Oregon. Yet, the next day brings further complications when the boy Gilbert had hired to lead their wagon demands his agreed-upon wage of $400. Alice is at a loss, as Gilbert's money was buried with him in his coat. Upon seeking Billy and Arthur's advice, Alice learns that the asked wage is unusually high. While Alice attributes this to Gilbert's poor business acumen, Billy suspects the boy may be lying, suggesting they wait until the halfway point of the journey. As for President Pierce, whose barking continues to rattle the travelers, Alice decides to rid herself of the dog's responsibility, with Billy's assistance. As the journey progresses, Alice and Billy bond over shared philosophies. When the time comes to address the boy's wage demand, Billy fails to negotiate with him. However, he proposes a solution. He asks Alice to marry him, intending to retire from his current role and start a family. Though taken aback, Alice, who has developed feelings for Billy, agrees to the proposal. Several days later, Arthur grows concerned upon discovering unfamiliar footprints. His worry deepens when he finds Alice missing. She had strayed from the wagon train, lured by the familiar barks of President Pierce. Arthur manages to find her, but as they attempt to return, they are ambushed by a Native American group. Equipping himself and Alice with weapons, Arthur instructs Alice to use her weapon on herself if he falls, a fate he believes to be better than being captured. Despite the odds, Arthur, with his exceptional marksmanship, manages to fend off their attackers. But when he thinks they're safe, a native warrior knocks him off his feet. Pretending to be unconscious, he eliminates the warrior at close quarters. Upon returning to Alice, however, he finds she had followed his advice, believing him to be dead. Distraught, Arthur covers her body with his coat, and with President Pierce by his side, he sets off to return to the wagon train, contemplating how to break the news to Billy. In the meantime, a separate group of 5 people traverse a different path in a stagecoach heading to Fort Morgan. The stagecoach ride to Fort Morgan is dominated by Thigpen singing, much to the annoyance of his fellow passengers. Once he finally stops, a conversation arises, with the fur trapper sharing his past relationship with a Hunkpapa woman, highlighting the universal human needs that united them despite the language barrier. Lady Betjeman, a strict Christian, takes umbrage at his views, asserting the existence of only 2 types of people, good and sinners. The ensuing debate about human nature draws in Frenchman René, while Thigpen and his partner, Clarence, observe the altercation with amusement. When René raises questions about Lady Betjeman's fidelity to her husband during their years apart, she reacts with great indignation. Unable to halt the coach due to the company's policy, as explained by Thigpen, Clarence intervenes with a bittersweet folk song to soothe the incensed woman. His efforts yield success, albeit with the unintended effect of making Thigpen tearful. Prompted by curiosity, the trapper asks Thigpen and Clarence about their line of work, and they reveal their profession as bounty hunters. Their strategy is simple. Thigpen distracts their targets with stories while Clarence swiftly incapacitates them. Thigpen adds a disturbing detail: he enjoys witnessing the final moments of their targets, finding a certain beauty in their expressions. This revelation instills unease and fear among the other passengers about what awaits them at their destination. Upon their arrival at Fort Morgan, Thigpen and Clarence promptly remove their cargo, a body, from the stagecoach roof and head into the hotel. René, Lady Betjeman, and the trapper disembark more reluctantly, eventually entering the hotel with caution. René secures the door behind them, a sense of finality setting in as he observes the coach's departure and the absence of an exit route should they need one.